Okay, so good evening to you all, and we are going to do a new chapter today. We are going to start constitutional design, that is in political science, or you can say civics, in your social science. Okay, can you tell me what do you mean by constitution?
Ma'am, it is a rule book that is drafted by a particular members like National Assembly or Constitutional Assembly, which contains rules and regulations that are applicable to every citizen in the country, and they also govern lawmaking.
Very good. Okay, you have the glimpse of it. Okay, so we are going to do constitutional design today. Let me share my screen. Yeah, you see my screen, right? Constitutional design. So it is kind of a rule book, okay, by how the government of India is to be run. So before we talk about our constitution, we will talk about the constitution. In this lecture chapter, we are going to talk about how is the constitution formed, who makes the constitution, what is the method to make constitution, can we bring changes in the constitution. Okay, all these questions we are going to be answered here. And before we begin in the beginning of our chapter, we are going to study about South Africa. Why are we studying about South Africa? Because our case is very much similar to South Africa. Like you know, the British had ruled us, and also the British had ruled over South Africa. Okay, so let's take a small. Okay, let's take a small look at the reader also. So, democratic constitution in Africa. Can you read this for me? Yeah, Sampath.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Democratic Constitution in South Africa. I have fought against domination, and I have fought against black domination. I have cherished the ideal of a democratic and free society in which all persons live together in harmony and with equal opportunities. It is an ideal which I hope to live for and to achieve. But if it needs to be, it is an ideal for which I am prepared to die. This was Nelson Mandela being tried for treason by the white South African government. He and seven other leaders were sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964 for daring to oppose the apartheid regime in his country. He spent the next 27 years in South Africa's most dreaded prison, Robben Island.
Okay, just hold on. So, let me take you to the presentation. Okay, now this was a saying from Nelson Mandela. What was happening in South Africa then? So there were three types of people living there. They were the whites, okay, that the Britishers, or you can say the whites, and then they were the blacks, that were the Africans, and they were the colored people like us, okay. They were neither very white or nor very black. Okay, so there were three types of people living there, but there was special. The white were the minority, okay, and the non-white people were of South Africa. So the white minority, they had ruled over South Africa, and what there was a lot of discrimination in South Africa on the basis of skin color. What do you call this discrimination? Racism. Racism was there on the basis of skin color. So what was this? And this discrimination was not among the people. This discrimination was encouraged by the white government. That is the British government. Okay. And the black people had to face a lot of problems. What were their problems? Yeah. See, non-white people were not allowed to live in the area of the white. Okay. So in the background, you can see there is a sign that they had put, the Divisional Council of the Cape White Area. It was by the order of the secretary that no black. This is that no blacks are allowed there. Okay, and here they also threatened to kill if any black person entered their territory. They also have threatened to kill. You see, natives, Indians, and colored. If you enter these premises at night, you will be listed as missing. Armed guards shoot on sight. Savage dogs devour the corpse. Means the dogs will eat you up. The soldiers will shoot you. Okay. So this is very cruel enough. And if in case any black person needs to go in the white territory, they needed a permit. Okay, they needed a permit like this person is showing in the. So discrimination was there at public places in South Africa. Everywhere it was there. Okay, private property, no parking, no blacks allowed. Like you see in this year, Hitler's love life revealed, and there was private property, no parking, driving through or turning around. Okay, so this was all. There was a special staircase for the whites and a special staircase for the blacks. The black could not enter a staircase for the European, okay, or the white. There are special seats only for the Europeans or the whites, okay, and nobody other than the white could sit over there. There were seats for non-whites, and this was you can see this is a very rusted seat. It is a no, the wood is not polished. You can see it is kind of a very rusted kind of a seat. There were special hospitals, special schools, even churches discriminated on the basis of whites and blacks. Okay, so it was not that there was just whites and blacks were divided. The whites had got the luxury facilities, and while the blacks got the poor facilities, you can say. So in fact, and also although they were the integrated citizens of Africa, they were not given the right to vote also. Okay, and all this was on the base of color discrimination. So what is all this was called? This was called the apartheid system. All this discrimination and this segregation of the blacks and the whites, this is called the apartheid system. Okay, if they ask you the system like we have read here in the like we read here in the reader, apartheid system. So there, of course, there when there is indiscrimination was there, there was protest, and Nelson Mandela protested against this, and the protested grew. Okay, anyone who has against the apartheid system was killed or was put to jail. So thousands and hundreds of people died, and in this process, Nelson Mandela was imprisoned in 1964. Okay, so this was what he said before he was charged with treason. Treason, and just for treason, he was charged for imprisonment. Okay. So apartheid divided the people and labeled them on the basis of their skin color. So the native peoples, they made up of the three-fourths of the population was of the population were called the blacks. Okay, they still now it is forbidden to call a person with the dark color skin. It is forbidden to call them black. Okay, so far you understood that Nelson Mandela opposed the apartheid system, and hence he was sentenced to life imprisonment in 1964. So still the blacks had to face many problems during the apartheid system. And yet, although Nelson Mandela was in jail, his protest continued, and the entire population of the blacks, they protested. And the party that Nelson Mandela represented was ANC, that is African National Congress. Okay. Okay. Hi. Good evening, Jitendra. How are you?
Yes, ma'am.
Good. Okay. We'll start reading from here. The apartheid system was
The apartheid system was particularly oppressive for the blacks. They were forbidden from living in white areas. They could work in white areas if only they had a permit. Trains, buses, taxis, hotels, hospitals, schools, and colleges, libraries, cinema halls, theaters, beaches, swimming pools,
hmm,
public toilets were all separate for whites and blacks. This was called segregation.
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 They could not visit the churches where the whites worshipped. Blacks could not form associations or protest against the terrible treatment. Since 1950, the blacks, colored, and Indians fought against the apartheid system. They launched protest marches and strikes. The African National Congress was the umbrella organization that led the struggle against the policies of segregation. This included many workers' unions, and the Communist Party. Many sensitive whites also joined ANC to oppose apartheid and played a leading role in this struggle. Several countries denounced apartheid as unjust and racist, but the white racist government continued to rule by detaining, to torturing, and killing thousands of black and colored people.
Towards the
To
new constitution.
towards a new
Uh,
constitution. As
so it
protests and struggles against apartheid and had increased, the government realized that they could no longer keep the blacks under the rule through repression. The white regime changed its policies. Discriminatory laws were repealed, ban,
repealed. Okay,
repealed
now
ban on
after there was a year long, but for many years they kept protesting. So how long are कहते हैं ना, what you say, there is an end to evil. There is always an end to evil and torture. Okay, you can only win by peace and love and peace. So their torture, the more they tortured, the more people rose up. Okay, so this they so after they got fed up. Okay, they got fed up. This was the discriminatory laws were repealed. Means now arbitrary system was banned. Now it was stopped. Uh, uh, Read further.
ban on political parties and restrictions on the media were lifted. After 28 years of imprisonment, Nelson Mandela walked out of the jail as a free man. Finally, at the midnight of 26 April 1994,
Hold on. Yeah, the
the
new
new
national flag.
national flag of the Republic of South Africa was unfurled, making the newly born democracy in the world. The apartheid government came to an end, paving way for the formation of a multiracial government. How did this
Okay.
come
So
about?
okay, you may stop. So the government was fed up. Okay, now they formed a new democracy. Okay, and all the discriminatory laws were removed. The political party that was banned was now unbanned. Okay, and now Nelson Mandela came out of prison after 28 years. He spent his entire life in the prison. Okay, so on so it was a day of celebration for South Africa, and South Africa got independence from the apartheid system, and the national flag of South Africa was unfurled on 26th April 19. The spelling is wrong. I'm sorry. 1994. Okay, now Nelson Mandela became the first black president. Okay, he came to power. After they came to power, of course, what they could do, they could do two things. Either they could take revenge on the white people, they would start doing the same thing to the white people, or they would forgive the white people and make a new start. So this is what they chose. Okay, they chose to form a democracy. Okay, and they were the people who wrote the constitution. The black leaders said that they will forget all the old things and create a new constitution in which everyone will get equal rights, whether it's black, whether it's white. So a constitution was written, and after 2 years of debate and discussion, the constitution of South Africa was written. Okay. Let us do some reading now. Shravan, I want you to read from here. After the emergence of the new democratic
After the
South
emergence
Africa.
of new democratic South Africa, black leaders appealed to fellow blacks to forgive the white for the atrocities they had committed while in power. They said, let us build a new South Africa based on equality of all races and men and women, on, on democratic values, social justice, and human rights. The party that ruled through oppressions and brutal killings, and the party that led to freedom struggles sat together to draw a common constitution. After 2 years of discussion and debate, they came out with one of the finest constitution the world has ever heard. The constitution gave to its citizens the most extensive rights available in any country. Together, they decided that in the search for a solution to the problems, nobody should be excluded. No one should be treated as a demon. They agreed that everybody should become part of the solution, whatever they might have done or represented in the past. The preamble to the South Africa Constitution sums up the spirit.
Okay, so the preamble of the, like we have the preamble of India. So India's preamble was taken from, a part of it was taken from South Africa. That's why we are in this chapter. They are talking about South Africa. Just continue the South African Constitution.
The South Africa Constitution inspires Democrats all over the world. A state denounced by the entire world till 1994 as a most undemocratic one is now seen as model of democracy. What made this change possible was the determination of the people of South Africa to work together to transform bitter experience into the binding glue of Rainbow Nation. Speaking on the South African Constitution, Mandela said, the Constitution of South Africa speaks of both the past and the future. On the one hand, it's a solemn pact in which we as South Africans declare to one another that we shall never permit a repetition of our racist, brutal, and repressive past. But it is more than that. It is also a charter for the transformation of our country into which is truly shared by all its people. A country which, in the fullest sense, belongs to all of us, black and white, women and men.
Okay, so like you see, we spoke about South Africa. Now there was this need for constitution. Why did we need a constitution? Okay, so we needed a rule book. Nelson Mandela explained how they were ready to forgive what was happened in the past, but they wanted to make sure that nothing as such would ever be able to repeat in the coming future. So he wanted to secure the future for all blacks and whites, men and women, with equality. So this, of course, like you all know, Mahatma Gandhi had a bad experience in South Africa, and he had come with his teachings from South Africa, and he came here and he saw and he decided to implement those ideas of Nelson Mandela here in India also. So that's why we did a brief study of South Africa. So there the constitution was written in South Africa. So now we are going to read why we need a constitution. Until and unless we don't have a rule book, it is never possible to function. Okay. So who is going to read? Sampath, you read.
Yes, ma'am. Why do we need a constitution? The South African example is a good way to understand why we need a constitution and what do constitutions do. The oppressor and the oppressed is in this new democracy were planning to live together as equals. It was not going to be easy for them to trust each other. They had their fears. They wanted to safeguard their interests. The black majority was keen to ensure that the democratic principle of majority rule was not compromised. They wanted substantial social and economic rights. The white minority was keen to protect its privileges and property. After long negotiations, both parties agreed to a compromise. The whites agreed to the principle of majority rule and the one of the per- and that one of person one vote. They also agreed to accept some basic rights for the poor and the workers. The blacks agreed that majority rule would not be absolute. They agreed that the majority would not take away the property of the white minority. This compromise was not easy. How was this compromise going to be implemented? Even if they managed to trust each other, what was the guarantee that their trust will not be broken in the future? The only way to build and maintain trust in such situation is to write down some rules of the game that everyone would abide by. These rules lay down how rulers are to be chosen in future. These rules also determine what the elected government are empowered to do and what they cannot do. Finally, these rules decide the rights of the citizens. These rules will work only if the winner cannot change them very easily. This is what the South Africans did. They agreed on some basic rules. They also agreed that these rules will be supreme, that no government will be able to ignore these. These set of basic rules is called a constitution. Constitution is make Constitution making is not unique to South Africa. Every country has diverse groups of people. Their relationship may not have been as bad as that between the whites and the blacks in South Africa. But all over the world, people have differences of opinion and interests, whether democratic or not. Most countries in the world need to have these basic rules. This applies not just to governments. Any associations need to have its constitution. It could be a club in your area, a cooperative society, or a political party. They all need a constitution. Thus, the constitution of a country is a set of written rules that are accepted by all people living together in a country. Constitution is the supreme law that determines the relationship among the people living in a territory called citizens and also the relationship between the people and the government. A constitution does many things. First, it generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for different kind of people to live together. Second, it specifies how the government will be constituted, who will have the power to take which decisions. Third, it lays down limits on the powers of the government and tells us what the rights of the citizens are. And fourth, it expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society. All countries
Okay,
that have
so you can mark, just a minute. You can mark this in your readers. This is the all about, you can say a short note on what is constitution and what are the constitutional functions of constitution. So mark this in your book. Okay, this is important. Okay, read further.
this All countries that have constitutions are not necessarily democratic, but all countries that are democratic will have a constitution. After the War of Independence against Great Britain, the Americans gave themselves a constitution. After the Revolution, the French people approved a democratic constitution. Since then, it has become a practice in all democracies to have a written constitution.
Okay. So all of you will understand. Anybody has any question till now?
No, ma'am.
Okay. So why do we need a constitution? What is a constitution? Constitution is a set of written rules that are accepted by all the peoples in the country. That what I have marked in the reader, you have to go through it. This is a very short answer for it. So it is a special type of book or document in which many types of rules and regulations are written, which have to be followed by all the citizens living in the country. So what does the constitution do and why do we need a constitution? Okay, so why do we need a constitution? First, it generates a degree of trust and coordination that is necessary for diverse group. There almost all countries have diverse groups. There may be Christians and Catholics and activists, and there may be Hindus and Muslims. There could be whites and red Indians, and there could be blacks and whites. Okay, so all types of diverse groups are there. Second, it specifies how the government will be formed, who will have the power to take which decisions. And third, it lays down limits on the power of the government and tells us what the rights of the citizens are. Fourth, it expresses the aspirations of the people about creating a good society. Now we are going to, this was all about the constitution in general. Like we read till now that all the constitutions are, most countries are, all democratic countries are especially having constitution. Now let's talk about the making of Indian constitution. So just like South Africa, even our India had to face a lot of struggle in making the constitution. Okay. Jitendra, I want you to read.
Making of Indian Constitution. Like South Africa, India's constitution was also drawn up under very difficult circumstances. The making of constitution for a huge and diverse country like India was not a easy affair. At that time, the people of India were emerging from status of subjects to that of citizens. The country was born to a partition of the basis of religious differences. This was a traumatic experience for the people of India and Pakistan. At least 10 lakh people were killed on both sides of the border in partition related violence. This was another problem. The British had left it to
Left
the
it.
rulers had left it to rulers of the prin- princely states.
Princely. You
Princely,
must have known, as you must have known, there were small kingdoms and dynasties here in India. So when the partition was done, what they did, they gave the country not, they did not leave the country as one. It was not one place, but in fact there were many small kingdoms and dynasties and princely states. You can say those that were ruled by prince and kings. So what they did, first of all, the problem, number one problem, what they did was they did the partition. They did a partition on the basis of religion. They asked the Muslims to go to Pakistan, and that the Hindus are going to stay in rest part of the India, and the Muslims should move to the places of Pakistan. Because of this, tens and lakhs of people have killed on both the side on because of the communal right. So this was one problem that the British did. The second problem was they left it to the rulers and they left it at the will of the rulers. Now the rulers, princely states, the rulers, they decided if you want to join the Indian government, join the Indian government. If you want to stay independent, you can stay independent. If you want to go to Pakistan, you can go to Pakistan. So this was a kind of a leaving a problem without solving it. So the British had left it to the rulers of the princely state to decide whether they wanted to merge with India or with Pakistan, or remain independent. So this was the problem, that was a problem in itself. And this was mainly this problem we had in Jammu and Kashmir. This problem the country had with the Nizam of Hyderabad. This country, this place, this problem they had in Assam also. Okay, let's read further.
Princely states to decide whether they wanted to merge with India or with Pakistan or remain independent. The merger of the princely states was a difficult and uncertain task. When the constitution was being written, the future of the country did not look like secure as it does today. The makers of constitution had anxieties, but about the present, about the present and the future of the country.
The path to
The
constitution.
path to constitution. Despite all these difficulties, there was one big advantage for the makers of Indian constitution. Unlike South Africa, they did not have to create a consensus about a democratic India should look like.
Hmm.
Much of this consensus had evolved during the freedoms.
Consensus means the figure of the population. Okay.
Our national movement was not merely a struggle against the foreign rule. It was also a struggle to rejuvenate our country and
Regenerate means get back the energy.
transform our country, our society and politics. There were sharp differences of opinion within the freedom struggle about the path India should take after independence. Such differences exist even today. Yet some basic ideas had come to be accepted by almost everyone. As far as far back as in 1928, Motilal Nehru and eight other Congress leaders drafted a constitution for India. In 1931, the resolution at the Karachi session of the Indian National Congress dwelt on how independent India's constitution should look like. Both these documents were committed to the inclusion of universal adult franchise, right to freedom, equality, and to protect protecting the rights of minorities in the Constitution of Independent India. Thus, some basic values were accepted by the leaders much before the Constituent Assembly met to deliberate on the Constitution. The
Okay, you can stop. So far you people understand?
Yes,
You
ma'am.
joined late, huh, Pranav?
Yes,
So
ma'am.
far do you understand?
Yes.
The constitution was not easily made. Okay, it took about 2,000 amendments, and eight people they did a vast study on the what happened in South Africa, what happened in other countries, the French Revolution. They studied the Russians, they studied the French, they studied the Germans, and they had one ideology, that they wanted to protect the rights of the Indians as the rights of the citizens, and all of them agreed to one thing, that they wanted freedom from the British. Yeah. So it was not a matter of conscientious population. It was not a matter of whites and blacks here in India. But in fact, it was a matter that they wanted freedom from the British. But the British, it was what was they had faced some problems. What was the main problem was that the British made a partition deal. Okay, they divided them on. That was the seed for the seed of the evil that they sowed here, and that is still going on till now. And and the second thing that they did was they left it to the rights of the princely state, that it is upon them that they should join the government, or they should go to Pakistan, or they should live on their own. They should make their own kingdom. So there was a big problem in making the constitution. Yet the constitution was written, and it was written very strongly that no government could change it. I'll take up questions if you have any questions. If you don't have any questions, we will end the session.
No questions, ma'am.
Okay, then we will end our class now. Okay. Bye. Good night. We will end the chapter in the next class. Bye bye.